Test, test. Hell of a big old delay. But I'm coming through. Alright, we can go ahead and get started, I imagine. Welcome to Twitching with Tristenkw5. And today, oh, let me mute this. Today, I'm finally, after wrapping up most of the big games that I want to get done by the end of the year, but you know, I still have time for December for some stragglers. I was jump in early December to give my predictions and my picks for each category in the Game Awards. Um, and then at the end of the month or early January, I do my top 10 list of games and anime and stuff. So this should be a quick and easy one. Let me pull up my browser and we'll get started. We do that first, and then we go here, and then we pick out some chill stuff, some chill music to play in the background. I had some in mind. I'll just do chill. Something that's just quiet and quiet that down a little bit. Just so it's not completely silent while I'm doing what I do. I don't like this one. Maybe ambient is better. Let's do ambient. That, no, I guess that is pretty. I was about to say that's a lot. This is gonna be the majority of the stream at this rate. Bass. That's what we need. Whatever. It'll work itself out. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. There we go. So we have our nominees. We've got 29 nominees to work our way through, including the player's voice decision, which I can only vote for round one here on stream. I'm not worried about voting on, uh, you know, the other two later on. It's not that the player's voice I don't care about all that much. It feels like the first years are doing the player's voice like this, but whatever. All right. So let's get started. We're gonna be starting with we always start at the bottom and work our way up to Game of the Year, because that's obviously the most interesting way to do it. I don't know why they make you pick Game of the Year first and then hit next to go through the rest of the categories. Nobody would ever want to do that. There's not a person alive who wants to pick Game of the Year first and then ignore everything else. Plus, but it is helpful because all these categories at the end that I absolutely do not care about are all in the same place. Let me make this full screen. There we go. Now we look professional. I should have did this to start with. So let's see. First, we've got the best esports team. I don't have any strong feelings. I never do. The only one I've heard of is Team Liquid, but that does not mean that I care. I'm gonna go with Team Liquid just because they're the ones I am aware of. Well, this is complicated because see, if I go to the next category, then it's going to go to the player's choice, and we can't do that. So, previous category, best esports athlete. We've got choices here. Again, I don't keep up. I probably should just not vote, honestly, to keep the. Oh, I have heard of Faker, but I think he's a League of Legends player, and I don't even know how he did. I'm gonna not vote in these, just to not skew to vote. The team thing is different, but voting for an individual, I don't want to. I mean, it's not like my vote matters that much, but also since I don't care. Alright, first actual video game category, although I think there's supposed to be a content creator category too, and then we'll get to like the meat and potatoes. Best esports game. of 2024 are all games that came out in previous years, at least as far as the nominees. Let's go with this guy from Dota 2. Looks cool. This Eagle guy. Mobile Legends Bang Bang. I almost want to vote for that just because of the name. And they all have the same white-haired archer ice lady. She looks exactly like the lady from WoW. Jaina, I think her name is. Esports. I'm kind of surprised Fortnite isn't on here. I would have honestly probably voted for Fortnite just because I feel like that's always popping off as far as esports. I wonder what the money in it is like these days. Anyway, is that getting too loud? Let me hear what it sounds like to you guys. If I need to lower that music. Okay, no, actually, no, that sounds like it's fine. Very background. In fact, I should probably turn it up. One sec. I don't know how it's that loud for me. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, I do. Okay. Let me turn this up a little bit. Not that I like this particular song, but there we go. Just so you guys can hear a little something. Alright, as we were. F11. Anyway, I don't care. I'm gonna vote for Valorant. This is the first year I played some Valorant. It didn't thrill me, but it was fine. And I'm sure it did fine as an esports game too. Content Creator of the Year, we all know who I'm voting for. Usada Pecora, who I do not watch at all, but I'm doing it in solidarity for all the harassment VTubers get nowadays. Iron Mouse, the VTuber, won last year, and she's been getting harassed ever since, as long with all VTubers. So now in solidarity, I'm only going to vote for VTubers unless I actually see somebody else over here that I actually know. And yeah, fuck it. Doesn't actually matter. I mean, it does to them. To the people in that category, I'm sure it matters a bit. But if they get the votes, they get the votes. All right, meat and potatoes. First actual category. Okay, no. Most anticipated game. This is the first one I'll actually give like a prediction in. I'm giving predictions and my picks, or my votes. I'm voting for Monster Hunter, so that's easy for me. Grand Theft Auto is gonna win because it's Grand Theft Auto. So actually, that's not even like a fun prediction, but I think that Grand Theft Auto is gonna take that one easy. Best adaptation. Well, my vote's gonna go to Arcane, but this wasn't a bad year. At least not exactly. Fallout came out and was a lot better than anybody expected. I've only heard middling to bad things about Knuckles. Like a Dragon was bad. I didn't watch it, but I got the feeling from the trailers it was going to be bad. All the behind-the-scenes information I got led me to believe it was going to be bad. I didn't even waste my time watching it from the few trailers and clips I saw. So that goes down as bad in my book. And then Tomb Raider, I think made by the people who do the Castlevania anime, or the Castlevania animated series. But I don't like the way this looks. Like, I don't like this art style. It borders on AI art. I know it isn't, but the way that team does art for anything else besides Castlevania, it always feels wrong. Anyways, obviously Arcane. For my vote. As for the winner, it's either going to be Arcane or Fallout. My prediction is actually going to be Arcane, because Arcane is super fucking popular, and the people who would vote for Fallout don't vote in the Game Awards. Fallout is probably the show that the general audiences would pick, but they don't vote in the Game Awards, so Arcane's going to win, as it should. Best multiplayer. This is sticky. This is a little sticky. I keep getting distracted by my own stream. I need to pause it. Okay. Also, get out of the way so I can see chat. There we go. Best multiplayer game, I think, is probably going to go to Helldivers 2. This was a huge year for Helldivers 2. It was a thing that everybody talked about as far as multiplayer games. I don't see Call of Duty taking it, not for any particular reason other than like Call of Duty's just always in this category. And I don't know any time that it's ever won. I could definitely be wrong on that, but I think You just got to fill that space and give Call of Duty some nominations, but it's just kind of doing its Call of Duty thing. Although I hear the campaign this year was pretty good, but the multiplayer is like eh. Super Mario Party Jamboree has its ups and downs as far as like what people think of it, but also nobody really puts Mario Party in like the. It's a good family game, but like as far as like a multiplayer game in general, people generally don't love it? Question mark. Uh, Tekken 8 is probably going to be my personal pick in my vote. I've put more time into Tekken 8 than, well, not more time, but you know, I love Tekken at this point. So, and they did everything right with 8 in my mind for the most part. So, obviously, it's a fighting game. You pretty much the single player story was fun, but you know, the vast majority of your time is going to be in multiplayer, even if you're not playing with friends. So, which I can't say about Helldivers. I'm not going to play Helldivers anymore if I'm playing with randoms, and even if friends want to play, I kind of burnt out on Helldivers, even though I barely played as much as my friends did. It's fine, and you know they've had their ups and downs this year with like their balance patches and the community stuff. I don't really know what their current state is, but I think they've kind of fallen down from their lofty heights set early on in the lifespan of the game. But it could still pull out a win. And then Warhammer just has the late in the year disadvantage. I think it came out like 2 or 3 months ago. And while I've heard pretty good things, it's another case of like only good with friends, not good with randoms. If you can even play with randoms, or not that it's bad, but it's just funner with friends, as opposed to Tekken, which can be fun with anybody. And some people are down to play Helldivers with randoms and still have a good time. So I think Helldivers is going to win the category. I'm going to vote for Tekken. On to the next. Best sports racing. No one cares this year, and I just mean this year. This year for sports and racing was really boring. Just all the usual yearly additions, no like arcadey surprises or anything like that this year. So I don't actually care. I probably shouldn't vote. I'm going to say the winner probably, and oh, you know what? There's a snub too, because this was the first year that the college football came back, and that would probably actually be my vote, even though I don't really have a strong reason for doing that. It's not like I play it, but back in the day when NCAA football was like regular, I remember liking it more than Madden. I just liked the way that it felt and played more than Madden. Madden felt very stiff and more focused on the picking the plays, and then NCAA always felt like it felt good to move and be on the field. So I like that one more for whatever reason. So I probably would have voted for it just because of that. But otherwise, I think EA Sports FC 25 is going to win just because it's not called FIFA this year and it feels fresh in people's minds. All the rest of these are like the same old shit. So I think that's the only reason why. And I'm going to vote for it as well for the same reasons, even though I don't have a strong feeling on in this situation. Best Sim Strategy. I am underprepared for this category in terms of what I've played. I wanted to play Kunitsugami, and I may play it before the end of the year, but I was really waiting for the price to go down because it's like I think it's $50. And I played the demo and enjoyed it, but it felt more like a $30 game at the high end. But it's also on Game Pass, so that's kind of the reason why it's keeping its value up. I played demos of that, and I played demos of Unicorn Overlord, and they're both good in that strategy genre in different ways. Manor Lords was real big earlier this year, but I don't hear anything about it anymore. I think it was like I don't know if it was temporary or if like, you know, it's just one of those games that like Helldivers, after it had its moment, it kind of just like fades to the background, but it's still kind of doing its thing. And I don't even completely know what it's about. I have a rough estimation of like what it's about, but I never fully watched like a full-on video of the game. But I heard things here and there, so I know that it's well regarded. Frostpunk 2 is Frostpunk, the sequel to Frostpunk. I enjoyed Frostpunk even though I didn't finish it. It's a city builder built on a freezing planet where you just have to keep your town or your city warm. I like that as far as a city builder. I like the harshness of its gameplay, but I think I did get to the point in the first game where I just like lost and I didn't feel like starting over, so that's never a good feeling in a city builder for me personally. Not that I'm holding that against the sequel, but it's just like that's my experience with it. And then Age of Mythology Retold is just a remake of or I think a remake or a new start for the Age of Mythology games, which are like what if StarCraft but old, and by old I mean like in the olden times of Earth, but with gods and stuff, so you can still do crazy stuff. But it's it's an RTS, one of the few RTS that are still kicking around these days. No strong feelings. So my vote's gonna definitely go to Kunitsugami, just because like I think it's very fresh, it's really original. It's not a normal kind of game. It's already kind of hard to explain what kind of game it is and why it fits in this category, and I don't have enough time or care to do so. But I played the demo of it, and I do intend to play more of it. And I hope to encourage more games to be like it feels very much like a PS2 game in the best of ways, as in like it feels different. Like back in PS2 days, every single game that was coming out could be a brand new, I don't know what to call this genre type of game, and this really fits into that mold of like old school. Man, they just really be putting out anything these days, kind of a feel. So either way, that's gonna get my vote. What I think is gonna win for best sim strategy, it might be Manor Lords, just because it's easier to pop in, play Manor Lords for a little bit, to my understanding, and then pop out. Like, you don't have to devote yourself to a big, long campaign to get the most out of Manor Lords. I want to say it's got like a multiplayer component and stuff, so that was part of the appeal, similar to Helldivers. But I could be completely wrong on that. I did absolutely no more research than whatever I saw during my course this year. So I lean towards Manor Lords might pull it out for that reason, because most of the judges wouldn't have played all the way through Unicorn Overlord to have much of an opinion. Frostpunk 2 is probably my backup pick as far as like what actually wins this category. I don't know how people feel about Age of Mythology, and they may just pick it by default just because they know what that is. But I didn't hear anything about it being good or bad. So my vote is going to Kunitsugami, and I'm going to put my prediction on ultimately. Let's just put it out there. I'm going to go with Frostpunk 2. I think people really respect Frostpunk these days, the judges and all. So I'm going to go with Frostpunk 2. I said it out loud. That's what we're going with as far as the prediction. Let's keep it going. Best family game. This is tough. This game sucked. I was looking forward to it a lot. It looked very good in trailers, but the Pluggy Squire, not good. Gameplay was pretty rote, and the writing and how much it talked was just too much. Kind of a disappointment. I could see why kids might like it, so it belongs in the family category at best, but it's not going to win. My vote's going to go to Astrobot by default, as will a lot of my votes that have Astrobot as a nominee. I think it is a game that everybody in the family can play and have a great time on their own. And even if they're all playing separate games, they can talk to each other about what they're doing, and it's still really fun. Even for adults, even for kids. I think Astrobot is truly like a game, like a video game for the family. Princess Peach Showtime was disappointing from what I hear. I don't have a strong feeling about it. It was a really good idea to put Princess Peach in, to try put, actually her and Zelda both got games of their own this year. I didn't realize that happened. I forgot Princess Peach came out this year as well. But it's sadly it's just mediocre from what I hear. I didn't play it at all. Had no interest. Super Mario Party Jamboree would probably be like my backup prediction. I do think Astrobot's going to take the win. But before that, I just want to mention, a lot of people liked Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom early on as far as like reviewers and critics, but I felt like that love fell off over time with that game after you get past the gimmick of being able to use items in the environment however you want to kind of like sandbox your way into goals. It was a good idea that they ended up not fleshing out enough for a lot of people, so I don't think that it's going to take it as a result. Otherwise, it would. And then, like I said, Mario Party is really a family game or a game of friends only, but that doesn't fix the fact that it's not. The mini games, I don't know. Super Mario Party, this one specifically is fine from what I hear. I didn't hear anything great about it either. So my vote's going to go to Astrobot, and my prediction is also going to be Astrobot, actually. I think Astrobot kind of broke through and will beat out the only reason this loses is because people don't want to give it. People are going to give it its win in other like the judges are going to give it its vote in other categories, so they feel like they should spread out their votes to kind of be like a little bit more fair. That's the only reason I would see like I think my backup prediction would be The Legend of Zelda in that case. Hopefully I'm not wrong and they just don't pick the Plucky Squire after like barely playing it and being like, yeah, this seems like a family game that looks cool, and then don't realize how fucking boring it is. Anyway, my vote's for Astrobot, and my prediction is Astrobot. Best fighting category. This one had this one is controversial because a lot of these, or 3 out of the 5 of these nominees have shit going on, depending on who you talk to. So, excuse me. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is an arena fighter, and that is always controversial among fighting game fans. No, my phone made a noise, and I was caught off guard. On top of, it's not a good game. I'm just gonna say that straight up. Yeah, I know. We'll get there, Hector. But yeah, Sparking Ball Zero is also not a great game, even though it was very popular, and then like the fan base fell off after they found out, oh yeah, this game is just very complicated, and it looks pretty in screenshots if you're up close. Oh, that's your pick. Okay, gotcha. It looks pretty in screenshots and stuff, but it's not great. And also it's an arena fighter, which is always controversial. Granblue Fantasy Versus is a remake or a re-release of Granblue Fantasy Versus from like a couple years ago. It is super pretty. They've added a ton of characters. I actually like it a lot. I actually bought it just to get to play as 2B as a guest character in it. I like this game a lot, actually. It's just like a shame that I don't have a lot of time for a bunch of different fighting games to be playing relatively seriously, but it's a contender. The only problem is it's like a re-release. So that's not going to win. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcane Classics is, yes, it has Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in it for the first time in decades. We can play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 again. But this is a collection of old games. Old-ass arcade games. In the category for Best Fighting Game of the Year. Like, there are just better picks you can put in this spot as well, probably, even though it deserves some kind of call-out, but it probably didn't deserve it here, which a lot of fighting game commentators have said. I'm parroting somewhat, but I also just agree with that. It was just like, I get why it ended up here, but it probably shouldn't. Multiverses is here for the second time, so this is the most controversial pick because it came out a year or two ago, and it was bad. So they claimed that, no, actually, that was a beta. After they took people's money and people played for it, they were like, oh, no, actually, that's the beta. So then a year or two later, they brought it back out again, and the Game Awards are treating it as if it's a first-time release because of that bullshit. It's a very Snyder Cut situation. Justice League Snyder Cut situation. Either way, it doesn't help that Multiverses is also just like a bad Smash Brothers. Bad to fine. So it's not going to win anyway, but it's trash that it's here, and it took up a slot from even like Mortal Kombat 1 is not on this list. Well, maybe Mortal Kombat 1 is like a last year game, but either way, people are really not liking Mortal Kombat 1. But even then, it deserves more of a spot on this list as far as a nomination than either of these two. And then yeah, I'm gonna vote for Tekken, and Tekken's gonna win. Hector picks Tekken, I pick Tekken, the world picks Tekken. It's the best fighting game this year. It's easy. I don't even need to explain why. If you're interested in why, put it in the chat. But I bet you're either somebody who already knows why, or you're somebody who doesn't care why. Finally, the category that was holding me back from doing this any earlier, Best RPG of the Year. I played every single one of these. I finished Metaphor ReFantasio an hour before I started streaming because I ate in between. I finally finished it today after 102 hours. God, that game makes you like fight through an ending like 7 times in a row. Every time you like, okay, this is it, and it isn't. Anyway, it was really good though. It's probably gonna ultimately be my pick in this category. Elden Ring being here in the RPG category, I don't really love. There's already the controversy of a DLC expansion being nominated this year in general, which has been a overall controversy throughout the industry about whether or not DLC for a game should be nominated in the Game of the Year awards or the Game Awards in general. I don't feel strongly either way. I've heard arguments both ways, and I kind of agree both ways. But also, I just don't think... I don't want to reward Elden Ring twice. Elden Ring got a whole year where it just swept shit, and I don't really think it needs it again, even though this is very good. See, now you're confusing the format, Hector, because I know you're not saying that you would pick Like a Dragon, but then again, you probably haven't played any of these, so maybe you're just saying a thing because you like a Dragon from a distance, so maybe that is your vote. Because actually, now that I think about it, you haven't played any of these. I don't even know if would you even be interested in like Final Fantasy? I feel like Final Fantasy could be your kind of game. Yeah. At least the remake, like Rebirth, because it's not. I mean, Final Fantasy, like the new Final Fantasy, is pretty much just like an action game. So it's closer to like a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry than it is like a turn-based RPG. But either way, yeah, that makes sense. So your vote's going to Like a Dragon. I love Like a Dragon. I love it a lot. I love this one in particular a lot as a love letter to fans of the series by bringing back Kiryu and doing everything they did with his story in Like a Dragon. The problem is that story is kind of overall weak, or at least the overall format of the story and where it ends up is like not bad, but just ends up weak. I think you meet a lot of new characters in a new environment that's really cool. But then, you know, Kiryu kind of has his own story going on, and Ichiban has his own story going on, and Ichiban's half of the story just ends real meh. Like, including, like, the last boss fight you have to do and how it resolves. It's all fine, but it's not very big and bombastic and exciting. And the problem is you do Kiryu's finale before it. So you do have... At least I think you do. And the sad thing is I can't remember. Actually, I think you do Ichiban's final fight first, and then you do Kiryu's final fight. And even then, the final fight with Kiryu doesn't really feel as earned as previous games in the series. But it was fine. And overall, the game is like a 9 out of 10. I'm just gotta be very picky. But no, I really like a Dragon, and I love its story and I love its characters. But I don't think it's gonna hang, for my pick anyway. And just because I don't want to skip over it, Dragon's Dogma 2 is a very exciting, fun game. I loved it a lot right when it came out, and I could be very excited to share videos of it and have experiences, and it really feel like you're going on an adventure in an RPG in a way that I have not felt. The closest I felt to the way I felt in Dragon's Dogma was in the first Elden Ring, and even that doesn't compare to what it feels like to walk out and see like the plains and the mountains and everything in front of you when you walk out of the town in Dragon's Dogma 2 for the first time. Like, it really feels like, wow, I can really... It's one of those few games I get the feeling of going on an adventure really right. And let me put it that way. I also have... I mean, these are RPGs, but they just don't feel like the spirit of the category to me. They're a little bit more action... They're more action than RPG, let me put it that way, in my mind. Yes, you mess around with stats and that, you know, equipment and stuff, but... And I guess Final Fantasy is in that same boat if I try to claim that at this point, even though you kind of can play Final Fantasy as a turn-based game if you go into the settings, and I don't have any real idea how that would feel. Probably kind of icky, but you can do it. But playing it as an action game, I feel like it feels much better, and is the only reason I'm even willing to play these games. But they are really... It is a really good game. It's just also retelling a story that's already been told in a more confusing and Kingdom Hearts kind of way, to be honest. But it is still very interesting, the retelling, what they're doing with the retelling. But I don't want to give this a vote until the third one comes out to see what the overall story turns into. So yeah, that leaves Metaphor, which yes is fresh on my mind. Yes, I just finished playing it compared to Like a Dragon, which I played in like February, March. Final Fantasy I played in the summer. Elden Ring I played at the end of the summer. And then Dragon's Dogma I think was also early summer. So these were all months behind. And Metaphor I literally just finished playing an hour ago. But all that said, everything that Metaphor did is surprised me and feels the most like an RPG in terms of like it has a mix of true, well, the majority of it is turn based, but then it has a mix of everything else that these games do where you're just fighting in real time if they're weak enough. So it has so many quality of life changes that fix turn based uh, RPG battles for me, on top of like a story that's really good, some of the best voice acting of the year, characters that are all really super interesting, a world and world building that's all really well done. There's nothing wrong with Metaphor ReFantazio. I think that's the way I'm gonna. That's the shortest way to say it. The only things that I can think of that are wrong with Metaphor are like frustrations that just come with the territory more than them being a fault of Metaphor, and even those are like small in the grand scheme of what this game does. Anyway, I'm spending too long on this category, but that's because I spent a combined fucking 500 to 600 hours on this category alone, and I'm not even that big on RPGs, but it just turned out that I liked most of the RPGs here, so it's worth talking about in detail just because of how fucking long I put into all these games. Anyway, my vote's going to Metaphor, and the prediction's very hard. The prediction is very hard because it's going to be either Elden Ring or Final Fantasy. Sadly, both two games that have one is like an extension to an already existing game, and the other is a partial remake of a very old game. But popularity wise and pretty graphics wise, Final Fantasy can't be beat in terms of the long game. But then Elden Ring in terms of just like you gotta vote for Elden Ring if Elden Ring comes up for something. And there's not many categories I can think of it would fit in better than RPG, so I think it's going to get a lot of the votes as a result, even though I don't necessarily like it in this category, but it makes sense for why it's here in the context of the Game Awards. Um, Ultimately, I think my prediction is going to fall. I think the judges are going to be afraid not to give it to Elden Ring, so I think Elden Ring is going to be my prediction. I think that's, and I don't think it's a horrible pick because the Shadow of the Erdtree is probably overall better than the original game, but it's not like you can just play Shadow of the Erdtree. Like you have to play a significant amount of original Elden Ring to even get access to this content. Even if it is the contents here are better than the first game overall. But either way, that's it. Prediction on Elden Ring. My vote's going to Metaphor. I could honestly see a lot of people actually liked Metaphor, and I could see it winning. The only problem is it came out so late in the year, and a lot of the judges probably didn't have enough time to play all the way through. So it's going to be a game that they're going to be in the middle of playing it right now, or back when the judges voting was going on for this, they were in the middle of playing it, so they didn't feel comfortable voting for it, and then it's going to pop up on a lot of top 10 games of the year list at the very end of the year when they all had a chance to finish it. Because almost everybody I've heard that started playing it did like it. It's just that it's so long. They haven't had a chance to finish it, so they probably wouldn't want to give an opinion. Best action adventure. I would probably put Dragon's Dogma and Shadow of the Erdtree in this category instead of RPG. But I get it, like I said. And I would probably replace these two with that. Not because they're bad necessarily. I just don't think Silent Hill 2 is an action adventure game. When you look at the overall categories, there's not really a better spot for it besides maybe just there's not really, at least in terms of like game genre, there's not a better spot for it. They don't just do horror. So they had to put it somewhere. But also it just came out at the same time. Like I think it's only been out for like a month, maybe two. So that's working against it in terms of just like, late games don't have enough time to get people to be able to play through it. But it is surprisingly good after everybody thought that it was going to suck because Bloober Team coded it or developed it, and Bloober Team does not have a good reputation, especially with such remakes. You're going with The Legend of Zelda, says Hector. For best action adventure, that's very understandable. I can't imagine you played any of the rest of these games anyway, so it makes sense that your vote would go there. But also, Star Wars Outlaws, very pretty but very bland. It is an Ubisoft open world game, but with Star Wars on top, and it was not good, or at least it was middling from all the reviews and stuff. So that's kind of the reason why I would take it off of this category, just because it doesn't rate being nominated for this category with how middle of the road it was. So it should be replaced by either Dragon's Dogma in this slot or Shadow of the Erdtree. Regardless, I'm voting for Astrobot. Even though I played the demo of Prince of Persia and I liked it a lot, but not enough to go back and buy the whole game and finish it, which I might do one day. And it's very sad because the studio that put this game out got closed because of poor sales eventually. I think that happened just like a month ago, or sometime within the last month. So that is very sad. This game was very good from the little bit I played, and reviews overall, but it came out in like February, March, so very early on in the year is working against it. And then I I guess this is, if they just had best adventure, I would feel like this fits better. I think that's a better way of like describing this kind of game that kind of has combat, but it's not super tough ever, and it's not really the focus, but it's still an adventure game. Yeah, I like the demo, but it wasn't enough for me to play it immediately. Yeah, says Hector. But either way, I think that Echoes of Wisdom would rate in a best adventure category, but best action adventure means that I feel like you need a little bit more going on in the gameplay department. For me personally. So my vote's going to Astrobot, which is, I still haven't really picked my top 10, but it is a contender for my game of the year, I believe. But now with me finishing Metaphor, that's going to be kind of hard to kind of like pin down when we get to that point, but Astrobot is untouchable. And you really got to see, what I've realized is you really got to see it in person and put it in your hands to really understand why. I had my friend from City Orchard come over, and she tried it here on my big nice TV and was able to play with like a proper PlayStation 5 controller with all the bells and whistles, and you immediately get why this is so fucking amazing when you play it. If you just watch videos of it, then you're like, yeah, it looks very pretty and cute, but I don't get what the big deal is. It is the closest thing, or not the closest thing, but it is a modern day Super Mario from a non-Nintendo company, which is very hard to do. Let me put it that way. So it's getting my vote, and I wouldn't be surprised if it wins just because judges all really love Astrobot. I don't see anything that's on the same level here as far as action adventure with the judges. So my vote and my prediction is going to be Astrobot. Making good time, he said to himself. See, if you have a best action game, why can't you also have a best adventure game? But anyway, best action game category, I literally have a 2-hour demo. Like, I have PS Plus Premium now, so I can play like the first 2 hours of this if I want, which I intend to do. But regardless, what I saw of it and in trailers, it's a very pretty game that looks like it plays above average in terms of gameplay. But China, so it sold a lot, and I don't think it's a bad game. I just think it's one that's not nearly as good as some folks give it credit for, just because of how pretty it looks. But we won't go into detail on that. Let's keep moving. Call of Duty is supposed to be good this year, at least as far as the campaign, but then the multiplayer stuff is kind of middling, or just fine. So I don't think Call of Duty is going to win an action game. Well, I mean, there's not really anywhere else for it to fit, but I don't think Call of Duty is a weird thing where it's so big that it's kind of just like, yeah, but we don't want to vote for it because it's just popular. Like, it doesn't feel good to vote for Call of Duty for anything anymore, unless it does something really beyond the norm for its series, and it's just not doing that anymore. Helldivers 2. God damn it, Siri keeps going off my iPhone. Helldivers 2. I already gave it its roses for the multiplayer category. I think playing Helldivers 2, I think what it did for multiplayer and its ideas were cool, except you got to remember that it's Helldivers 2. Helldivers 1 did a lot of what Helldivers 2 already did, is just did it, top down instead of over the shoulder. When you look at it that way, you realize that Helldivers 2, as a game, removed from the hype, is just good. Not great, not amazing. The reason why it's so much fun, I think, is really dependent on other people. But there's so many other games that fall into that category this year that are also just good games, I feel like. As far as like why I might not pick it, but now that I look at this category, I might have to pick it as the only one that I played, and I just on principle. I wanted to play Warhammer, but it has the opposite. It has a similar problem of, if you're not playing it with friends, then you kind of run out of stuff to do in it. I think it has a fine single player mode, but I think it's going to need to add more content for, hey, I don't have friends to play with, so, and I just need to be like, I need to be able to play this game with computer controlled bots and still have a good time. And from what I understand, it's not there yet. Along with some issues with like variety in the guns and the way that you level up being a real fucking ass grind. Um, so there are some negatives, but I still think it'd be really fun to like. I still almost got it several times. If it had gotten down to $30 or somewhere between 25 and $30, I probably still would have gotten it sometime this year, even if I had to play it alone. Just because it looks really cool, and the Warhammer stuff. The Warhammer 40k Space Marine games, the previous one was really good, and I know that it has the pedigree. People were really excited for this one. And there's a chance it wins the category. Oh wait, this is for action, not multiplayer. It's probably not going to win the category if it's for action. And then finally, I don't want to talk about Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade has got enough controversy attached to it with it being anti-woke and blah blah blah, but also just as a game, it's just kind of. I played the demo of it. I didn't finish the demo. It it plays like a bland cross between Bayonetta and a Dark Souls game. And yet I know so many journalists and critics who actually really like it, and I think it's because of how removed they are from. Well, I barely played, like they barely played Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Like they played enough to know why it's well respected, but they aren't into it that much, so they don't necessarily finish all those games. So when they play a game like Stellar Blade, they're like, yeah, this seems like it's in the same, it generally feels good, and it generally looks like the animations looks alright, regardless of what you feel about, like, the main character's look and that whole thing. I think they just kind of like see a game that's like, yeah, this is ticking all the boxes, but I'm so I'm so particular about how the gameplay feels in those kind of games, and I just really don't think that Stellar Blade hit it. I might not have given it a fair chance because the demo just might not get to like where that combos the combat system is really fully fledged. But still, I also just don't want to play it on principle. But that's just me personally. Um, so anyway, my vote's gonna probably actually have to go to Helldivers 2, even though after all I said about it being just kind of like meh. I just don't think this is a strong category this year because this one's too multiplayer dependent, and this one is, and these are just kind of like their combat systems and their game feel are below par for the genre they're in, and Call of Duty is Call of Duty. So I'm voting for Helldivers. As far as my prediction, real tough, but it might go to Black Myth Wukong. Because I think because you have to remember the journalists and critics vote are the majority vote for like the panel or the committee of Game Awards voters, and a lot of them don't play any of this shit, or not a lot of them, but not a lot of them don't have time to play it seriously. So I think the one that makes the biggest impression, if you even haven't played it, is probably Black Myth Wukong or Helldivers. But it's action game. That's the thing. I hope this doesn't win because it's action game. It's fine if it wins multiplayer. I think that makes sense. But here, it's real icky. So, my prediction is Black Myth wins, and I'm going to vote for Helldivers. Hopefully I don't play... I mean, I can come back and change this before next week. I'm going to try to play Black Myth Wukong before the end of the week. Like the first 2 hours, and really feel it for myself and really see if I am just reading it wrong visually. And then I can come back and change this vote myself to this if I really feel like, it's good. But for right now, this is my vote, and my prediction is that it's gonna win. Okay, we're getting into some of the. I think we're out of the meat and potatoes and back into a little bit of wishy-washy territory. Best VR AR game. I don't have strong opinions on this, but I've heard the most I heard about any of these games, Batman Arkham Shadow is actually really impressive as far as a VR game, and as far as a Batman Arkham game, it actually really is supposed to be there's a reason why they're giving it away for free with every MetaQuest 3, and that's because it's probably the best VR experience in the last few years, let alone this year. From my secondhand account, listening here and there. But even then, I haven't heard like a ton about it. I just heard that from one very good source as far as one of my like go-to video game people. I can't really speak on any of the rest of these. They look just kind of like the usual VR stuff. I mean, I know Metal Hellslinger is a non-VR game, so this would be a VR version of an existing game, and Metal Hellslinger is pretty cool. It's not my kind of music, but I like the idea of shooting to music that has become its own genre in the last couple of years. There's now like 4 or 5 of these kind of games floating around that are all pretty decent. Metal's just not for me. And then Metro is like a Stalker type series or a Fallout type series in terms of like what kind of game it is, and this is just like that in VR. So I'm sure that that's probably fine, but I don't know how good that is. So I'm going to give it to Batman Arkham Shadow just because of the one person who told me that this was actually really fucking cool. And that's also going to get my prediction as a result because I haven't heard anything about any of the rest of these, and I don't know. I don't think that the judges have played enough of these to feel strongly about it, so maybe they'll just give it to it by default, but I don't feel like I'm going to get that one right anyway. It's kind of whatever. Best mobile game. I didn't even know AFK Journey. I feel like I saw advertisements for this, and I didn't realize it came out this year. This came out like less than a month ago, right? Or maybe it just came out. Maybe more time has passed than I thought. But it feels like it only came out like a handful of weeks ago. But it still managed to make it the nominations, which feels weird. I don't know anything about AFK Journey. I just feel like I saw the ad for it. That's the only reason I didn't mention it. But I don't actually know if it's any good. I actually played the rest of these. I played Velatro. Well, I'll come back to that. I played Wuthering Waves, but I didn't play it on mobile. I played it on my PC. That's because it's a fucking Genshin Impact clone, but with just like different combat. Combat that leans closer to Bayonetta, whereas Genshin Impact's combat leans closer to like Legend of Zelda, but it's with more going on. It's still I like Genshin Impact overall better than Breath of the Wild, without getting into details here. But in terms of gameplay and combat, that's what it is. So when I played Wuthering Waves, I was like, okay, well, if you're going to make that combat, if you're going to focus even more on combat instead of like exploration and stuff than Genshin Impact, that could be cool. But then I played like a handful of hours of it and I just wasn't sold. I didn't really feel like getting into like the whole grind thing again. But it's fine. I don't think it's going to win here, and I especially don't think for a mobile game category, I don't think it's going to take it, but who knows. And then Zenless Zone Zero is almost exactly the same story, except I was excited for Zenless Zone Zero because I love the way it looks, I love the art style, and I actually like Hoyoverse games on and off now. So I was actually looking forward to Zenless Zone Zero a lot. And then I played it and I just realized that like it was just like a way too easy Devil May Cry / Bayonetta / character action game with very good graphics, but then like you're just grinding through very easy fights to do like the MMO thing, but with that kind of combat. So it's a shame. I really like the character designs. I really like the overall look and the graphics, but it just I personally couldn't do it. And then Balatro. My prediction, Balatro. Best debut indie game. This can go a little bit faster because some of these are repeats. The Pluggy Squire sucks. Manor Lords, I don't know enough about it. Pacific Drive, I was really on the fence of playing. I heard good things right after it came out, but then it really seemed to fizzle out and absolutely nobody talked about this game ever again. it's like a roguelike driving game with zombies where you have to like constantly be moving from point to point, repairing your car and finding fuel for your car and stuff. But you never really get out of the car. You're always in the car, is my understanding. Or if you do get out, it's just you can't go too far from your car because you're just running out to grab a thing and then get back into it or something. I don't really know, but I did hear good things about it, and I like the idea of a roguelike in this format. But I didn't get to play it. It was always seemed too expensive for the amount of praise I heard it get, which was not much. But I'm sure it's pretty good. And then Animal Well, me and Hector both played. As far as best debut indie game, I think Animal Well was better than average for what the kind of game it was. It was like a Metroidvania, but a puzzle game instead of combat, and it had a very interesting look. I liked the graphics in it. I liked the way it felt, and I liked the puzzles overall. But I did not ultimately love any of it. It was great, but I didn't love it. And when I finished the main story of it, I was done with it, as opposed to trying to look for all more secrets and stuff like that, which tells me it's like it's in that Fez category. It's in that secret world puzzle game category that I usually love, but it didn't feel for me. It didn't feel like it tickled my brain in the right ways to make me feel like the good juices that I usually get from those games. It didn't wow me. It was fine. Um, all of that said, because of the rest of the way these nominations go, I might still give it to Animal Well. Because I don't want to flood my own personal votes in one. I want to spread them out a little bit in certain ways. I think Animal Well, as far as like, hey, this is the first game from your studio, is a very promising start. I think it's an amazingly promising start. The only problem is I don't know if the person who made this is going to be able to do more. I would pick Bellaccio, but I didn't play enough of it, so Animal Well. Yeah. Yeah, I think this again the only one of these that you kind of played. Did you play any Mana Lords? Let me know if you did. You don't have to. You might be busy, but I don't think you played any. You didn't play any Mana Lords. So no, yeah, it makes sense that your vote would go here. I'm actually gonna vote for Animal Well too, because I think it's a very promising start, and I think for the spirit of this category and considering how many other places Bellaccio is popping up. Yeah, I didn't think so. Bellaccio's gonna get its due, so it doesn't need it for best debut indie game. I don't know if this guy's gonna even. I don't know if either of these two creators are gonna make any more games past the first one, or just continually support their original one or whatever for a while, and then maybe get out of the industry, or get picked up by a bigger studio to do other things. That's the vibes I'm getting from both of these. My vote is going to Animal Well. The prediction is tough. I don't know if the judges are willing to give best debut to Bellaccio for the same. I feel like they might be thinking in the same way I am, of just like, man, Bellaccio's all over the place. Does it really need to take best indie from, or best debut from like another smaller studio on top of everything else that it's getting? If they're thinking that way, I kind of feel like Animal Well is also my prediction. If not, then it's probably Bellaccio. But to be safe and to be finalized about it, my vote is for Animal Well, and my prediction is also Animal Well. And then we come to Best Independent, which is why the last category went the way it did. We've talked about these two. Man, there's so many people who like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I wanted to like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes so much because, again, it's in that same puzzle space as Animal Well, except it's just way more puzzly even. Like, this is just wall-to-wall puzzles of like a math situation and all kinds of like just like stuff on paper puzzles, which is not a problem. I liked the look of the game. I liked the way the game, like the setting of the game was interesting. Whatever was going on in its story seemed like it was going to be cool. But then I just hit a set of puzzles that I felt like were not smart and were not fair almost. You pretty much had to guess your way into the answers of a certain set of puzzles And that burned me to the point that even though I was like 3/4 of the way through the game, that burned me enough on just that set of puzzles to just be all like, nah, this game lost me. I think a lot of it is just because like I didn't necessarily love a lot of the stuff I was doing puzzle-wise before that. I was just hoping it was kind of like building to something that I was going to be like, oh man, this game overall was really impressive. But since I hit those puzzles that were just like, I had to look up the answers, and the minute I did, I was like, there was absolutely no fucking way I was going to figure that out, and I don't feel like there was a logical way to figure it out. This kind of just felt like a thing that you had to just like bumble your way into, and if you get one of those in your game that is all about solving puzzles, and it's not because the puzzle was too hard for me, but it's because like the logic is just non-existent. I will not have it. 1 second, getting a call. Hello. Okay, I'm back. I should really find something to do. I thought about putting on the prep screen while took a phone call. My grandma was giving me a call to say happy birthday, so I couldn't not take that call. Because she didn't. She apparently tried to call me yesterday, but my phone reception was out, so she had to call me back again tonight. So, gotta take that call when you get it from family. Anyway, to finish up this category, because I can finish it up pretty quick. No vote for Lorelei and the Laser Eyes as a result. Neva is a very pretty platformer, but I think gameplay-wise, it's just kind of whatever, and it's only like 3 or 4 hours long. And as far as best independent game, I just don't think it hangs from the little bit I know. UFO 50, I want to vote, almost want to vote for just for the same reason of spreading out my votes. Without getting into a long explanation, it is a collection of 50 games made by a bunch of different developers, to my understanding. So a bunch of different, it's like a collaboration project of a bunch of different developers making like 50 different games that could all be in like the Nintendo to Super Nintendo era, but made with modern 2024 or like 2020 to 2024 video game design in mind. So it has the same older kind of look and feel of those games, and like the genres and the stories and the characters all feel like something that you could just pick up off the shelf randomly back in the late 80s, early to mid 90s. And I think it hit that really perfectly. I really wish this was in the best debut indie category, but I guess it's not debut in some ways because the main guy behind the project, Derek Yu, made the Spelunky games. So technically, it's not a debut from him, even though this is not just a project by him. But that might be why it's not in the best debut category. Maybe we just thought it didn't rate there. But it's weird then that it got into the best overall independent game category. Anyway, I almost want to vote for it, but this time I can't ignore Balatro. If there is a category to give Balatro this year, it is definitely best independent game. For so many different reasons that I'm probably not going to talk about on stream just because I've talked about enough elsewhere. So I'm going to give my vote to Balatro here, and I'm pretty confident it's going to take the category. And I think that's fine. We'll talk about it more as it pops up throughout more of these categories, though, because that's when things get interesting. Best community support. Taking a drink. Here's my problem. Best community support is right next to best ongoing. What's the fucking difference? There is, like this one is recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates / patches, versus best ongoing, awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. So it sounds like best ongoing is more video game focused, like only the stuff that you see in the game, and then best community support is everything else that could be going on around the game. But it's weird because like didn't Baldur's Gate came out last year, so it's weird that this is not in best on. It's like I still feel like even though it's best community support, it should still have to be a game for this category that still came out this year. I feel like that's doable. It makes me want to vote for Helldivers as a result, because early on in Helldivers, super fun stuff was going on, and I think it's some of the best like crossover between like real life and in-game lore that you get. Like, I don't think there's any game that's done it better in the new social media internet space of 2024. But obviously, Fortnite is constantly getting new shit. But I don't think, and some of it's changing the game up a lot. I think this was the year I got into Fortnite because they added no build mode, or was that last year? I don't know if no build mode has been out for 1 or 2 years, but whatever year they added no build mode would probably be the year that I should probably vote for Fortnite. But I actually haven't played. I feel like I haven't played Fortnite for like a year. Final Fantasy 14, yes, is like the only other MMO that's still not the only other, but it's like WoW and Final Fantasy 14 are like the two big MMOs at this point. So you know, it's gonna keep getting content, and people really love it. So I know it's really good. People really love Baldur's Gate. I don't like this category, man. I don't have strong feelings because there's a lot of like, yeah, I don't know. These are all kind of tied. Just because, and you know, No Man's Sky is just still doing its thing after all these years, and you know, these two are both really good comeback stories. So it's not like even that can go to just one game. Anyway, My vote is going to go to Helldivers 2 for this category because of all the really interesting stuff they were doing early on, even if it didn't work out ultimately in later months. But my prediction is going to go to Baldur's Gate 3 because Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of like the Elden Ring of a tier of like, oh, this popped up in a category, you're going to vote for it, and that still applies for at least one more year. So my vote's going to Helldivers, and I think Baldur's Gate is going to get it. And then quickly going over best ongoing, which is only in-game stuff. I feel more Destiny 2, I think barely got anything this year, so it really shouldn't be in this category. Diablo 4 is all. I feel like they just put it here because they wanted to get Diablo 4 and nominate it somewhere, and this is the best fit they could do feel for it. I do think that the stuff they added to Diablo 4 made people who are really into Diablo really like Diablo 4 more over time, so at least it has that going for it. But overall, I still think it's not as good as Diablo 3's ongoing content. But that could be my own biases because I don't like Diablo 4 as much as 3 in terms of like the character selection or the class selection and stuff. And then Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and Helldivers. Apply everything I said in the last categories except without the social media presence. I think the stuff that they added to Helldivers has actually gone both ways in terms of good and bad, in terms of like the in-game stuff. Divorced completely from like the crossover with the real world. Just like if you never knew that the forums existed or Reddit existed, and you were just playing this game from day to day, the changes they made to this game rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, from what I understand, over time. So there were big ups and big downs, and I just don't think the consistency is there to win this best ongoing category. So I think I'm gonna pop it into Fortnite, just because I think that's fair. All of Fortnite's stuff, to me, is mostly in-game content versus like social media stuff. So my vote is going to Fortnite. My prediction, this is actually kind of tough. It may go to Diablo. It may go to Diablo or Helldivers, because I feel like the judges may lean away towards picking the games that are here every single fucking year. Destiny's been nominated for ongoing awards for like 5 or 6 years. Final Fantasy has been nominated for ongoing awards since the Game Awards fucking started. Same thing with Fortnite. I feel like the judges are going to have subconscious biases towards Diablo 4 or Helldivers 2 just because they're a fresh pick. And which one, I don't know, but I'm going to lean Helldivers just because I feel like the hype around Helldivers will make other judges be like, well, I heard good things about it, so that game gets it. So my prediction is Helldivers going to take it. My vote was for Fortnite. Games for Impact. Weird category. I get why it's here. The game selection you put here is not great. This is like a pro-social meaning message. Games that are not really that are video games, but they are focusing more on story and storytelling and the way that interaction can be used to craft experiences to make you feel emotions and come away just feeling things and thinking about things in new ways. On top of being like pro-social, so like something that's focused on like making sure disabilities are understood and that kind of thing. I don't have strong feelings on this other than Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 sucks for all intents and purposes. I liked the first one well enough, and I was looking forward to the second one enough, but it was a game that kind of didn't need a sequel, and for all intents and purposes, it sounds like the sequel is just more of the same, which makes it kind of bland, or not bland, but it just makes it kind of meh. So that's not great. Otherwise, any of the rest of these, I could tell the stories, some of the stories about some of these, but I don't know anything about Closer the Distance. I actually just know absolutely nothing about this game. So that's that. Indica, I might actually vote for now that I think about it. I know what happens in this game. I've had some of it spoiled for me, and it's very interesting in ways that I like for a category like this, and not in just like the kind of saccharine story walk and talk kind of ways. It does some interesting stuff that you would not expect for what the hell it looks like, especially from this picture. It's very interesting, so it's probably going to get my vote. Neva is from the team that brought you Gris, a couple of years ago. Very pretty, but like I said, it's very short. It's like 3 or 4 hours play, like a 1 to 2 sitting game at most. and its story is fine, and it's one of those. Life is Strange Double Exposure, a direct sequel to the first Life is Strange game with the same characters, which, take it or leave it, is a good or a bad thing. I don't have a strong feeling. I didn't love Life is Strange. I played like the first two and a half episodes of Life is Strange, and then I kind of just didn't care anymore. So this isn't gonna be the vote for me, but I could see it winning. And then Tales of Zhao has a whole backstory with like where its development came from. The developer of this game pretty much made it to come to terms with the passing of his real life father. And so the story in this game, but this is also just like an actual like game. This is like alongside Prince of Persia this year for like the kind of game it is. So this is the most game out of all of these nominations, but that's not enough to make me vote for it. It's also pretty good, but it didn't blow anybody's socks off. So my pick is going to be Indica because of how interesting Indica is, and or Indica, and maybe I'll play it one of these days down the line. But for right now, I haven't touched it. But I think the overall winner will probably be Life is Strange. No, maybe it'll be Neva. Because I think Neva's the game that most journalists / critics would have played because it's so short. They could just pick it, they could fit it in. And it's getting enough word of mouth for people to feel like they have to try it to know for sure how they feel about it. So I'm going to pick, my vote's going to go to Indica. And my prediction is Neva is going to take this category. Innovation and accessibility. Says it on the tin. I'm not somebody who would need the accessibility features, so I don't feel very strongly about any of these, and I haven't heard anything this year like I did last year. Like Forza Horizon was my pick because I heard how much that Forza Horizon did for accessibility, and it was very interesting, but I heard nothing this year. I think I heard some stuff about Dragon Age, like some rumblings about Dragon Age, but not enough to have strong feelings about it. So I'm actually going to skip my own personal vote for this, because I do want a game that deserves it to get from people who have an idea or feel some kind of way about it to do it. As a prediction, I'm only going to say Dragon Age from the little bit that I am aware of. I believe it's either going to be Dragon Age or Prince of Persia, possibly, for reasons I won't go into, because this category is kind of whatever for me personally. But if I have to put my prediction on anything, I'm going to put it on Dragon Age for this category. We're getting there. Best performance. None of these are Metaphor ReFantazio characters, and that is a shame. But it seems like this category, because it's more performance, well, I guess there's not anywhere else to put it, stuff like that. So the voice actors, the people who just voice act, are directly competing with people who do the full motion capture and everything, and facial capture. So it's kind of a tough category. I think it puts just pure voice actors at a disadvantage. Also, I wish they would list the characters that they play as, because I don't know. I know this chick as she's like the main chick, or the main girl, or main actress, or main voice actor and performer in Senua's Saga. She is Senua, so I know that. I imagine Luke Roberts is the main guy from Silent Hill 2, but I didn't play that game, and I don't feel any kind of way about the performance. Pretty sure she's probably the main character from Star Wars Outlaws, which I think would just be a voice acting role. I don't think there was any motion capture there, but I could be wrong. I don't know which one of the girls from Life is Strange, which one of the main... Maybe she's the main character, maybe she's the main character's love interest. Don't know. Sure, she did a great job. And then I don't know who this is in Final Fantasy Rebirth. It's either Aerith or Tifa. I want to say that I heard somewhere at some point that it's Aerith. And that's the only one I've played, so my vote's going to go to that no matter what, because I haven't played any of the rest of these games and I don't feel any kind of way. My vote's going to go towards that. My prediction... Maybe Life is Strange? Man, this is hard. Because I'm pretty sure Melinda here, or Melina, won for her performance in previous years. So one would hope that she, not hope, but I would want somebody who hasn't been able to win it before to win it, especially since she's doing the same character in a arguably worse game. But obviously that doesn't matter for her level of performance, but still, you gotta take these things into consideration. So I don't think she could win it, but I don't think she's going to, or at least I kind of lean away from putting my prediction there. I don't know. I haven't heard enough about any of these to know otherwise, other than I just know that everybody loves all the voice actors in the Final Fantasy remakes. So this is my other leaning. Uh, let's just simplify. I mean, I have my reasons for leaning towards Luke here as well. I don't think she's in the running, just because Star Wars Outlaws is not as beloved in this kind of a category. This is kind of like a similar situation where she'd be playing the same character that she was in like the first game, so it's just kind of like a double hit. So maybe she wouldn't get as many votes, but I mean, like, it's not like, she's been doing Aerith, I think, for a while now, I would imagine. Either that or she's at least been doing it since the first and second game and this remake series at the least. So technically, all of these three that are most likely to win are also returning from previous years where they could have possibly won. Except for maybe Hannah here, because I think Life is Strange 1 came out before. Yeah, I think it definitely came out before the Game Awards was a thing. I didn't mean to click. No, change my vote. My vote's going to go to Brianna White. My prediction's going to go to... Man, this is hard. Life is Strange. And really, the only thing that's putting me on that is it's the most recent game to come out, so she'll be the most recent performance in the judges' heads. Life is Strange Double Exposure, I think, came out late summer, early fall, something like that. I could be wrong on that. It might have come out further out. I don't really remember when it came out, but that's the only reason why I say Life is Strange might get a little bit of a bump. Best audio design. This is very tough. Senua's Saga does a lot of stuff to try to convey hearing multiple voices in your head, like realistically, and through like consulting actual disability, I think, like mental disability experts on how to best convey what it's like to have schizophrenia, I believe. Like, diagnosed clinical schizophrenia where you're hearing voices in your head, I believe is the name. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But either way, the audio design, like the 3D audio, is very important to get the most out of that. And that goes into audio design. I don't really like this category because it's icky. That all said, the sound effects in Astrobot were really good. The sound effects in Final Fantasy were really good. I didn't play any of the other three, so it's not really fair. I'm sure the guns in Call of Duty sound like guns. I'm sure the icky, moist, smacky noises from Silent Hill 2 are all of those things. My personal vote is between Astrobot and Final Fantasy. Let's go with Final Fantasy, I think, for my vote. My personal vote, just because Astrobot, I like the sound effects and the music and stuff a lot, but and there are some gameplay implications, or like there's some audio design going on here. It's not like it's a slacker. It's just Final Fantasy has very classic sound effects. It had a really great score, like music. I don't even know if that's really necessarily included in this. There's probably going to be a best score of music, yeah, right next. Um, but even then, I just feel like all the sound effects and for how big this game is, it does a lot with its sound. And I kind of just want to put a vote out there for it somewhere. It's a game that I actually did like a lot, even if I didn't vote it for best anything gameplay related or story related, or I guess I haven't gotten to best narrative, so maybe. But either way, hope I've not been talking too loud for like the last couple of minutes. Either way, I'm going to give my vote to Final Fantasy. Let's not belabor the point. And my prediction is actually going to be Senua's Saga's Hellblade 2 just because their marketing is so focused around the audio design. So it might still take it even though the game is pretty mid to like Um, or Astrobot. I rescind it. I think my prediction is going to go to Astrobot just because I don't think this is a category that people feel that strongly about, and Astrobot's just very hot right now towards the end of the year. So I think Astrobot's actually going to take the category, but my vote goes to Final Fantasy. Best score in music. I really like the music in Metaphor, but not in the same way that I like the music to Persona. I'm not going to find myself listening to Metaphor music again, but the entire time I was listening to Metaphor music, I had a smile on my face because of how ridiculous and weird its music is. Just look up the battle music on YouTube for Metaphor, and it's just a good time for like a little bit. To describe it, it's like kind of classic what you would expect from like fantasy epic music, but then they just went out and they found some Italian guy to scat all over the place. He's just skitting and scatting, uh, and he is definitely like an opera Italian man scatting and not even saying words. He's just making mouth noises all over the music. Kind of chanting, kind of scatting. It's really something to listen to, and it's very weird the first couple times you hear it, and then you get used to it, and it's always welcome when it comes back in. It's always a fun little thing, but it's nothing I want to listen to on its own. Um, Without getting into the detail of music and stuff and score, because I just really don't have strong opinions on anything in this list, not even Astrobot. I like the music in Astrobot. Kind of repetitive after a while, if I'm being honest. There's just not enough of it in my head. In my head. There might have been actually more than but I just don't remember them, which means, I don't feel that strongly about it. So my vote's actually going to go to Final Fantasy. I don't really feel like I need to explain why I'm not voting for stuff in this category just because I didn't play them, and I haven't heard it, and I don't have a strong opinion even if I might have. And this is actually also my prediction for what's going to win. It's Final Fantasy music. You can't beat Final Fantasy music. My runner-up would probably be Metaphor, as in like what would be my predicted runner-up. If I'm wrong, there's a chance it could be Metaphor, but I don't think people feel like I think people would enjoy it for the freshness of what it's doing, but I also don't think I don't know there's enough people who would be like, "Oh yeah, I just want to listen to this. I want this soundtrack." People fucking love Final Fantasy music, especially Final Fantasy VII. So even though it's just a remake of that old music, reorchestrated or whatever you want to say, that's going to be enough to get votes from the judges, I think. So this is both my vote and my prediction. 6 more categories. Best art direction. For outstanding creative and/or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. Is there just a best graphics? There is not. So this is pretty much the best graphics category. Mm. Hmm. In theory, I should be giving this to Black Myth Wukong. Hmm. On pure visual design, I mean, it is art direction. Black Myth Wukong kind of takes it for me, which is not exactly surprising. I really like the way that Metaphor looked, and I like its world design, but it does look a little bit bland in spots. Because I mean, it's a fantasy world, so you're doing a lot of dungeons, you're doing a lot of caves, you're doing a lot of, like, old school kind of like castles, palaces, that kind of thing. And none of the environment, the environment stays kind of grounded for that overall.
That and the overall like the way that they cell shade it and the way some of the other details in the way that it looks. I felt like when I played the demo, I was like, this kind of looks a little like it's gonna take getting used to, for better and worse. I think it's very original looking, but really, if you put it side by side and ask me which of these games looked better, it would be like third here behind these two. Kind of. I mean, I really love the way Astrobot looks. I think Astrobot looks really impressive, but it's just like a very clean plastic metal look that it does very super well, and it's very varied in the way that it does that, and it has all the different characters from all the different PlayStation games represented in its art style. But I feel like it's a little bit simple compared to like what these other games are doing in this category, so I'm not gonna give it best art direction. I didn't see enough of Black Myth Wukong to really feel strongly about it, so I might actually end up giving it to Elden Ring. But I'm trying to think if there was anything visually in Elden Ring that really... I mean, Elden Ring just kind of... I think there's a bunch of areas in this game that look much more interesting than in the base game. But that said, mm, I don't know if it's different enough for me to feel good giving it best art direction. I think Black Myth Wukong is the problem with Black Myth Wukong is I know it had performance issues, but really that shouldn't necessarily factor in too heavily into art direction. If it was best graphics, that would be more of a concern. But I also just like I say over and over again that it looks very pretty, and I think in trailers, if you make me excited to play because of just your visuals, even if I question your gameplay, then that's art direction. That's visuals. So if I'm gonna give this game any kind of a vote, I feel like this is the category I'm gonna do it for. So I'm actually gonna give it to Black Myth Wukong just because of art direction. My prediction may actually also be Black Myth Wukong or Elden Ring. I'm ultimately going to say I think the judges are just going to be a bunch of people who didn't play Black Myth Wukong. So I think my prediction is going to be Elden Ring, Erd Tree. So my vote is Black Myth Wukong. My prediction is Erd Tree. Best narrative. Um, that would involve getting into the nitty gritty of a bunch of these stories. But I really want to vote for Like a Dragon somewhere, so I might give it to Like a Dragon. Or am I going to give it to Metaphor? Let me think about, after just finishing it, do I feel like its story, its narrative, man, nothing else here is in the running for me. Kind of. These two are not in the running. This is the same Final Fantasy story, just kind of brought up, they made some changes that were interesting, but whether or not they're good changes will have to be, we need the third one to find out. So I don't think I'm willing to give it to this. It's between these two for me. And I've already said I gotta give it to Metaphor. I really want to be able to vote for Like a Dragon for something this year, but it's tough. The story just is where some of its pitfalls are. Like if this game was like a handful of hours shorter and they tightened up some of the where the story went, it would be a better game. And I don't think Metaphor has that problem necessarily, at least not in the same way. My vote is going to Metaphor. I think my prediction. This is tough. It's kind of between Metaphor and Final Fantasy because in terms of like the storytelling in Final Fantasy, it's some of the best in the like the visuals and the cutscenes and the voice acting and the budget just make it very impressive. Especially for the size of the game that they did all this work to. Impressive. But it is retelling a story. My vote and my prediction for best narrative is going to be Metaphor. Oh, wait, there's so many people who didn't play it. I take that back. It's Final Fantasy is the prediction. If Metaphor had come out earlier in the year, it would have had a better chance at this category. So my vote for Metaphor, my prediction is for Final Fantasy. Best game direction. I really don't like this category, kind of. Because it's very, even with this explanation of what this category is about, it's very broad. And it could be interpreted in so many different ways because it kind of comes down to what matters to you in game direction. Um, oh, Metaphor is here too. Really? Didn't see that coming. Shit. So I'm not gonna pick personally. I'm not gonna pick Final Fantasy. It's doing more of the same as remake, which is fine. It's doing it very well, but it's not doing anything new. Not enough new. Elden Ring, more Elden Ring. Not a whole lot there in terms of. I don't think that rates for me personally. I already said my faults with Black Myth Wukong. So now we're getting to these three. These three are my. I may not give it to Astrobot. Astrobot is more of a great game also because technically it's just really just like, hey, what if we made Astro's Playroom into a full-fledged game and that game was really great all the way through. That's what Astrobot is, but it's not really game direction wise. It is honestly more of the same, even if it's really good. Balatro versus Metaphor. They really changed the direction here. They really fine-tuned their formula for Persona type RPGs with this game. This is easily the best Persona type game at this point, with all the changes they made to the combat system and the overall format of the story and the gameplay and what you're doing as part of your quest, and combining that with the existing like calendar system and time system and all of that weave together with quality of life and all that. Really impressive, but it's an iteration. It's a good iteration on an existing, even though it's not part of the same series, it's practically a Persona game in terms of like everything else other than setting and some some decent gameplay changes here or there, but really it's a Persona game. It's just the best one now. So really, I kind of lean Balatro, honestly. But I don't know if it does enough to deserve best direction. I think design-wise it's kind of interesting, but really it's just a roguelike that happened to pop off kind of big. I'm gonna have to start getting mean, because this is like, I gotta start plucking at hairs, splitting hairs in order to really. Balatro's very good, but I don't know if it's best game direction good. How many categories we got next? Oh, we just have Game of the Year next. Did I actually vote for Balatro on anything else besides best mobile and best independent? Best game direction. This is going to make me make some really hard decisions early on in the next category that I didn't really want to have to really face until I got to my top 10. But this kind of plays a part. We're almost done. Apparently we only have 2 categories left, so because I skipped some. My vote for best game direction of 2024 is going to go to I'm going to actually give it to Metaphor. I'm going to actually give it to Metaphor. The changes they made to the systems and stuff in this game without getting into details and just getting stuck here, they're the kind of changes you only make when you're really, really honed in on what needs to be changed to make a game better, direction-wise. Balatro is very good, but it kind of is a simple concept that you just kind of keep adding content to in terms of like the jokers. And the challenges and stuff like that is also very good, but it's so hard. Game direction, innovation in game direction and design. I don't know if Balatro is particularly innovative. It is in the way that it combines roguelike systems with poker, essentially, a little bit, but not really. Just using poker hands, but not really playing poker. I don't want to have to explain why this is the way my gut feels. If I was called out on it, I'd go into more detail, but I don't think anybody cares. So, in my head, I will know the reasons why. But for now, I'm voting for Metaphor. As for my prediction for what takes it, probably Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring takes best game direction. I'm pausing because I want to be sure before I leave the page. That's where I'm leaning. In my head, it's between Elden Ring and Balatro as far as a prediction for the winner. And I think it's going to go to Elden Ring. That's just all I can say. That's just all I can say. It's another vibe feeling. Here we are, final category. And then, seemingly, we're wrapping up the stream. Game of the Year for 2024. Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantazio. The exact same nominees as Best Game Direction. Game of the Year. For me, it's between these three. Let's cut it down to half. It's between these three. I really enjoyed Shadow of the Erdtree. I really enjoyed Final Fantasy. I don't feel that strongly about either of these as much as I do these three. I don't think I'm going to give it to Metaphor. I like Metaphor a lot, but I don't think I'm going to give it to Metaphor. I don't think I'm going to give it to Balatro. It got Best Indie Game from me personally. I really like Balatro. But nothing... It didn't make me personally reach the highs that Astrobot did. The highs that I felt from Astrobot this year, being somebody who's been playing games as hardcore and as in-depth and following the industry as much as I have, Astrobot was the right mix of everything. So out of this category, out of these nominees, my vote for Game of the Year is going to Astrobot. Now for the final prediction. My prediction for Game of the Year. Not going to be Metaphor. Not enough people finished it. Not going to be Black Myth Wukong. It's going to be one of the other four. It's going to be one of the other four. God, this is very hard as far as a prediction goes. Balatro could have an upset of sorts. It could be the underdog that did it. I hope Balatro gets Game of the Year because I think that's the most interesting thing to happen across the board. As long as it doesn't sweep the rest of the categories it's in, and then it just seems like dumb. It's gonna feel off. It's gonna feel bad. if Balatro wins like most of the categories it's in, and then it goes on to win Game of the Year. Even though that sounds like that makes sense, it'll make it feel more of a. It'll make it feel like a meme instead of like a game that deserves it. So part of me hopes that it wins Game of the Year and then loses most other categories, except for maybe Best Indie. Like I think it should only win those two. It should win Best Indie and and then Best Game of the Year if it wins Game of the Year. If it doesn't win Game of the Year, then it can win as many other categories as it wants. But it would be most. I think that's the most interesting end result. Best Indie and Best Game of the Year Balatro would be the most interesting thing. And considering that It Takes Two won last year, sky's the limit. It is possible. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. So now, really, I think it comes down to Elden Ring versus Astrobot as far as my prediction. I'm going to put my prediction on Astrobot, man. I think there's enough of the committee that isn't going to be willing to give Elden Ring another vote. Especially as like an expansion to an existing game. I think that's going to rub enough people the wrong way to not put it over the edge in terms of winning the category. I'd be so fucking interested to see the percentages on the votes, but they never give the percentage on the votes. But I'd be real interested to see like how close some of these games came to winning. Anyway, that's it. That is Game of the Year. It's gonna be Astrobot in both for my vote and in my prediction. I don't feel super strong in that prediction, but I gotta pick one, and that's the one I'm gonna pick. So a quick rundown again, because this actually makes it nice and easy to see. From the start of the meteor categories, we're gonna skip these. So my best multiplayer game of the year is Tekken 8. My best sports racing, whatever. Best sim strategy, Kunitsugami. Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, best sim strategy. Best family goes to Astrobot. Best fighting goes to Tekken 8. Best RPG goes to Metaphor ReFantazio. Best action adventure goes to Astrobot. Best action game goes to Helldivers 2. Best Best mobile game goes to Balatro. Best debut indie goes to Animal Well. Best indie game goes to Balatro. Best community support goes to Helldivers. Ongoing goes to Fallout. To Fortnite. Games for Impact goes to Indica. Best performance goes to Aerith from Final Fantasy. Stupid spam in the chat. Best audio design goes to Final Fantasy. Best score and music also goes to Final Fantasy. Best art direction goes to Black Myth Wukong. Best narrative / story goes to Metaphor. Best game direction goes to Metaphor. Game of the Year goes to Astrobot. I feel okay with that. I like where my distribution of votes for the games I love this year went. I feel good about that. Metaphor actually ended up getting Metaphor probably tied with Astrobot for most votes from me. Right? Yeah, Best Family put it over. Otherwise, it'd be most votes for Metaphor. If we don't count Best Family, that's 1, 2, just 2. 2 for Astrobot, if we don't count Best Family, and 3 for Metaphor. Right? Was it 3 for Metaphor? These 2 and Best RPG. So 3 for Metaphor and kind of 2 for Astrobot, but if Best Family counts, then they're tied. Alright, I didn't expect that result. Interesting. I think I'm going to do player's voice on my own, because I don't feel like going into it on stream. Anyway, but that is the stream. I think that took an hour and a half. Did I start this at 9? Yeah. Wow. That took longer. It always takes longer than I expect, but I have a fun time doing it. Thanks for watching. I had I recently came up in my head with a catchphrase to sign off with that I felt pretty good about for my, because I never really had that with my streams, and I've completely forgot what it was. So, but thanks for watching. Nice stream, thank you. Appreciate it. My next streams will probably be the end of the top games of the year, which will be either at the end of December or early January. But if I have anything else going on before then, I'll let you guys know. Really appreciate it. This was fun, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.